Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Nicole Whitney, and it's News for the Soul time, life-changing talk radio from the uplifting to the unexplained. I'm alive, I'm here, back after a long illness, and ironically, the topic tonight is beliefs and healing, and we have a most amazing show for you tonight. Two very powerful people are here on the show together, and not only are we going to be talking about healing and spontaneous healing of belief, Gregg Braden's latest work, but we're going to be doing it, mass energy healing, on the air, live. We have had, as many of you know, very huge results on an ongoing basis with a guest I bring on regularly on News for the Soul. Her name is Jo Dunning. She's also here, and not only are you going to be hearing about the spontaneous healing of belief, but those of you who choose will be experiencing healing right here, right now. Mass energy healing and Gregg Braden. Right after this, we're going to get the messages out of the way, by the way, right now, because we're going to go straight through the top of the hour. We have way too much to do. Oh, and before we go, by that way, we are going to get the commercials out now. Now, if you're holding online, we've got hundreds of callers on the line already. So many, in fact, that many of you called in before Gregg did. So I have got to actually clear some of the lines. So if some of you hear your line go dead, I'm terribly sorry. But all you have to do is call back in. I'm just going to be clicking away until I can find my guests here. It's a good problem. All right, and we will be back in a few minutes to start the show, and we go straight through to the top of the hour with Gregg Braden and Jo Dunning on News for the Soul. Don't go anywhere. And we're back, and oh boy, the fun has begun already. I'm still clicking away. I'm sorry to all the people I'm disconnecting. If your line goes dead, all you have to do is call back in, but I have to get our guests in the top of the queue. Otherwise, I can't activate their lines, and all of you were so darn quick on calling in today. So there we go. Now, meanwhile, what we're going to do, as I continue to click down to Gregg, who is waiting on the line here, I'm going to introduce the guests. Actually, first up, what we're going to do is bring Jo Dunning on. Now, she's been a regular on News for the Soul. She's been known as a very unusual energy healer. And she first joined us, I think it was about a year ago on News for the Soul, and we experienced her work and saw dramatic results regularly. And as most of you who are regulars on the, listening to the show, I'm quite particular about the energies we work with regularly on the show, and there is a very huge reason why we work with Jo Dunning regularly here, and especially today, because thus this show marks the first in a series that we've planned for some time. I've said from the beginning, it's been, well, as you heard on the breaks, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary and a lot of years in radio, and I've always said I hate talking about things, I love doing things. And, I just hate just sort of pontificating. I like results and action and taking action on things. So we're going to start some multi-dimensional broadcasts, and this is the first. We're going to be talking to best-selling author and scientist Gregg Braden, and it's been quite a while since we've talked to him. As soon as I click down to you, I'm still coming, Gregg, hang on. And but also at the same time, Jo Dunning is here, not only talking about healing, but conducting a mass energy healing for all of you who choose to receive it right now. So Jo Dunning, who can be found online at jodunning.com, that's JODUNNING, .com, is here now, and let's bring her on and we can get her started, get the healing started. As I'm clicking away, maybe we can heal these phone lines. Hi, Jo. Welcome back.
Hi, Nicole. Hey, it's great to be here again.
It's great to be anywhere at this point from my perspective. It's been quite a month, and glad to be back in the chair, back on the air, and to be talking to you in particular. And I thought, how interesting after this long illness that I'm going to be talking to you and Gregg Braden about healing today. So welcome back to the show. How's it been going for you?
Hey, it's wonderful here. I'm in Arizona, which is a great part of the country for me, and I'm loving it. And I'm just delighted to be back on the show with Gregg and have the opportunity to combine our insights and wisdom and begin to work together and really help make some wonderful changes for the entire listening audience. I know that Gregg has some great information in his new book that he's just released today, I believe, is the first day. And we're going to see what kind of belief changing we can actually do right now during this show to begin to make the kind of changes that you'd like to have in your life so that whatever is holding you back can be removed or released or resolved, and you can begin to live life from a whole new perspective. So I'm delighted to be here. And I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the energy work while you're getting all the lines connected, Nicole.
So actually, before you do that, Joe, I was just wondering, I know I might be putting you on the spot, but you sent me an email earlier, and you had the most interesting story of a connection between you and Gregg Braden from several years back that he probably isn't aware of either. And do you feel comfortable talking about that on the air?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that, Nicole. Golly, it took place probably in the mid-'90s, I guess, the first time I was attending a conference in Jekyll Island, and Gregg was one of the wonderful presenters there. And it was after the conference was over, and we were all heading to a restaurant and there on the conference grounds. And as I was walking towards the restaurant, I saw an elderly gentleman coming down the sidewalk towards me with a walker. And as I saw him, I had this knowing he's about to fall. And I began to move towards him, and he did, in fact, in that moment, lose his balance and fall to the sidewalk without being able to brace his fall at all with his arms. And I heard his head hit the sidewalk, and that was a very unpleasant sound. So I went right over to him, and I was the only one there for a few moments, and realized that he had some pretty bad injuries. What was visible to anybody that was starting to gather was that he had a laceration on his head, a cut that was bleeding. What I noticed, I was looking inside the body, the cut was just a minor detail. My real concern was that he had a large crack in his skull bone underneath that cut, and that his brain was in a state of trauma, and so his vital signs were becoming very bad. And in just a few moments, people from the workshop, the leaders of the workshop, including Gregg, came out to see what was happening and was there any way they could help. And by then I was holding the gentleman's head in my lap and putting my hands on his head, because sometimes many of you are aware of that when we go into a place of assisting or healing others, we move into a really deep, silent place that is beyond ego. It's beyond trying to control the outcome, and it's beyond the mind and the personality, and it's a place of deep, deep, deep silence and peace, and this enormous feeling of tremendous love, not love for anything, but just love in filling. And that was the place that I was in as I was cradling this gentleman's head. And I had my hands on the little laceration, the cut on his head, and very quickly the skin sealed over, and there was no sign that there had been any injury there. And in the meantime, probably a total of maybe 15 minutes, the EMT's emergency team was called, and when they arrived, I continued to keep my hand on his head, because my real concern was the brain trauma and the skull fracture that was present. And they allowed me to continue to do that. And so in a total of about 15 minutes, I watched, and Drunvalo was there with me also, and we watched as this crack in his head began to also heal itself. Now, without any desire for outcome, when that presence comes through, the body knows exactly what to do with it every single moment. And so the body of this gentleman was healing itself, using the extra energy that was now available to heal itself, since I was there without expectation of outcome or trying to control anything, just allowing it to unfold. And in a few minutes, the gentleman regained consciousness, and the EMTs had finished their examination, and they said to the man, "You're a very lucky man. You can get up and go on home." And in fact, he was a very fortunate man. And that was kind of the beginning of my first actual contact with Gregg, and our paths have crossed just very briefly over the past